For years, I blamed my past for everything wrong in my life. Then I learned one thing that completely changed how I saw myself. And honestly, it made me realize I had been trapped by a story I kept telling myself. Have you ever looked back on your life and felt angry about how things turned out? Not just frustrated for a moment, but carrying resentment that seems to follow you everywhere? For years, that was me. I was angry at my past. Angry at circumstances I couldn't control. Angry at people who weren't there when I needed them. And if I'm being honest, I was angry at myself too. What I didn't realize was that anger wasn't just something I felt. It had become part of my identity, and that realization changed everything. The breakthrough wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't positive thinking. It was recognizing that I had built an entire story around my pain, and I was living inside that story every day. Growing up, there were a lot of things I didn't understand. I spent time in foster homes. I didn't fully understand my family history, and I often felt disconnected from where I came from and where I belonged. For a long time, I carried a story in my head about my life. A story that said I had been dealt a bad hand. A story that explained why I felt different. A story that justified my anger. The more I repeated that story, the more it shaped how I saw myself and the world around me. Maybe you've experienced something similar. Maybe you've gone through rejection, disappointment, betrayal, or circumstances that genuinely hurt you. When pain goes unresolved, it can quietly become part of your identity. You stop seeing it as something you experienced and start seeing it as who you are. And that's where things get dangerous. Because once anger becomes part of your identity, it starts influencing everything. Your relationships, your confidence, your decisions, and your ability to trust people. I didn't notice it happening. I thought I was protecting myself. But in reality, I was building walls around myself and calling them strength. Then I came across an idea that completely shifted my perspective. Holding on to anger was hurting me far more than the people or situations I was angry about. Think about that for a moment. The past wasn't changing. The people involved weren't changing. But every day I was reliving those emotions and giving them power over my present life. And here's what most people never realize about anger. It can become comfortable. Not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar. If you've carried resentment long enough, letting go of it can feel like losing a part of yourself. Because suddenly you're forced to ask difficult questions. Who am I without this story? Who am I without this pain? Who am I if I stop blaming my past for my future? That was a hard question for me to face, but it was also the beginning of real growth. One of the biggest lessons I learned is that you can acknowledge your pain without allowing it to define your future. Those are two very different things. You don't have to pretend difficult experiences never happened. You don't have to excuse people who hurt you. But you also don't have to spend the rest of your life emotionally living inside those experiences. You can learn from them without becoming them. Think about two people who go through similar childhood struggles. Both experience pain. Both face challenges. Yet years later, one remains trapped by resentment while the other builds a meaningful life. The difference isn't always what happened. It's often how they process what happened. At some point, healing requires a decision. Not a decision to forget. Not a decision to pretend everything was okay. But a decision to stop allowing the past to dictate every part of your future. That realization changed how I looked at my entire life. I stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, what do I want to do with the life I have now? That question gave me something anger never could. Forward momentum. If you're interested in honest conversations about mindset, healing, and personal growth, consider subscribing because that's exactly what this channel is about. And if you're listening to this and realizing you've been carrying anger from something that happened years ago, you're not alone. A lot of people do. Sometimes we carry emotional weight for so long that we stop noticing it's there. But awareness is often the first step toward change. At the end of the day, you cannot change your past. None of us can. But you can decide what role that past will play in your future. Will it become a prison that keeps you stuck? Or will it become part of your growth story? For years, I thought my anger was protecting me. In reality, it was keeping me stuck. The moment I stopped making pain my identity, my future became bigger than my past. And maybe that's the question worth asking yourself. Is your past shaping your future or controlling it? If this resonated with you, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.